Put the person down. You start the meeting and say pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everybody. Just a reminder of the public forum sign up or anything else. Do we have anybody out?
It's just Kay. So remember, it's your work sessions.
Oh, yes, we don't have to do any of that. No, okay, good. No.
So for announcements,
Announcements.
yeah,
Do you have any?
we have our OSBA convention. You have 2 board members that will be attending along with myself. After we're done with the meeting, we can talk about where we'll meet up tomorrow morning for the first general session. And then I texted both of you that we have a regional meeting with the other superintendents and school board members from our region. I believe that starts at 1:30 or 1:15. It's right after lunch. And then I will have to break away at 3 o'clock because I have a planning session with Mo Carrick for some professional development that we're doing on Tuesday. And then I also wanted to remind you, this is not about OSBA, but it's for Maria and Anna, that on the 15th, which is next Tuesday, you had agreed to do the FFA judging in, I think it's in Mount Angel. So we will make sure that I get you the information. And I believe we got an email that talked about dinner. So I will find out what's going on there and get back to you on that.
I thought I got the email and it's at Silverton High School.
Okay.
They have burritos.
Okay.
For it.
So if you don't have any dietary issues, you don't have to,
No.
okay. Very good.
What do you?
We're gonna judge the FFA stuff over at the,
Like their
Silverton.
speeches and things like that?
like, well, I'm not very clear about the whole thing. There's some art, there's some, you know,
Projects.
like,
Very broad-minded.
like the communication is broken down.
But we will be there, right?
But we will be
Yeah,
there.
very good. Thank you for doing that.
And then I wanted to remind the board that your next work session is January 3rd. And so that is right after we come back from the first of the year, obviously. That'll be a really important work session for you to attend, because that is where the pre-bond planning committee will come to you with some ideas, and then they'll have a chance to give them direction, because then they have their next meeting January 9th. So there'll be more details on that, and I'll make sure you get it on your calendars, okay?
Very good.
Right, those are the announcements that I have.
Discussion items. Update on all 4 goals of our strategic plan.
Yes, so for this work session, it's dedicated to a quarterly update on how we're doing on our strategic goals. And so we have a variety of presenters tonight, and they have PowerPoints. I'm going to try and get myself organized here first. So we have the first goal, which has to do with social and emotional growth. And let's see if I can. Kay, can you hear me? Okay. And the person presenting, is it you and Kay, or is it just?
Kay said that I will, I mean, Kay's available to correct me, which is needed off.
Kate's available to correct me. I like that.
But I'll probably leave most of it, and she's there to, like I said,
Okay,
be there for-
we'll come on up then.
Good evening, everybody. As you know, I'm not
Actually,
sure.
might want to sit over there
You're
because
you'll
Andrew's
drive
coming
the-
in.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I-
drive the-
Yeah, just
All
on the
right.
next slide.
As you all know, I'm not short on words. I'm gonna set a timer, so I actually respect everybody else's time that's here. Don't go over. I can talk about goal one all night. Okay, so goal one for us, really centers on social emotional awareness and competency for our students. Pre-K through 12 plus, but certainly K through 12. I think that it is very apropos that we have it at goal one, not to say that it is the most important goal, but recognizing right off the bat how important social emotional learning is for our student body. We could say that any year, but I would believe that I could speak for any of our building administrators that are in this room right now, that they would stand behind me and say that this is a unique year in terms of being attentive to social emotional competencies and what students are going through and behavior struggles and just everything that goes into just being present and ready to be in school so they can learn. It's a challenge. And so I'm appreciative that the board and Danny has placed this goal as one of the four that is something we have a focus on, because it truly is something that deserves that attention. So the district will promote social and emotional growth, support, and the mental well-being of all, and create an environment of empathy and respect. So our first goal, performance indicator one, was to create and publish a district-wide calendar of events. They can be used by students, family, staff, and the community members. We advertised upcoming events and maximized participation. And the deadline was September 31st, and to be posted on the 3rd of October. And so that's off of the website. There's a link, I think it's under the counseling page and a few others. 22-23 celebration calendar, and you click on that, it opens up that PDF document, which opens up, it shows a lot of the different months and then what we're celebrating and things that are being highlighted. And like, for example, in November right now, a number of the classes were doing Veterans Day type projects. We obviously had Dia de los Muertos. That's in the board report for next week, but if you had a chance to be there last week, it was incredible. We had over 450 people in that gymnasium. I mean, it really was. I mean, it was really cool. Yeah, so we have more on that next week, but yeah, I get really excited about starting to talk about it because it was really good. So we have accomplished that goal. It is there. Something we'll obviously build off of year by year and update that calendar, but indicator 1A is complete. Indicator 1B collects social emotional learning data throughout this school year and analyze that data and update action plans for the following school year along with that calendar of events. And so essentially what this means is that you can't change what you can't measure. We have to be able to measure, which is a difficult thing, right? For social emotional, how do you quantify that in a way where you collect data and then turn around and do something with that when you're talking about emotions and comportment and et cetera, et cetera. Well, fortunately enough, there are tools out there that we have at our disposal where we can do just that to an extent. And so like DESA, for example, is one of those tools. And at the elementary level and at the middle school level, we have something called the DESA Mini. And so the DESA Mini is something that is done by the teacher. It takes about 60 to 90 seconds per student. And it's 7 to 10 questions that we do it in the BOI beginning of the year. We do that in October. So the teachers get about a month to know their students. And then they just run through those 10 questions. And it's a norm process that's got significant data sets behind it that will then give a score in terms of, is that child in a safe range? Is that child in a concerning range? Or is there an alarming range that this child is behaving in some capacity or another? And if it triggers at a certain low enough score, we go into a full assessment. And that full assessment takes about 5 minutes, 6 minutes per child, and it's significantly lengthier, but it collects a lot more data that the teacher is giving. And then from that, it gives us pretty full reports. And then we turn around and those reports are given to the counselors. And those counselors are then able to work with teachers Sarah Broadhurst right now, for example, the elementary school, I think, used the DESA data from October and has created 5 or 6 different small groups of students who demonstrated a gap in some sort of social emotional capacity. And so then, for example, how they view themselves, like their self-perception skills. And so then she went in and started building these small groups of taking these students and putting them together, maybe in groups that have some students that have strong self-perception skills, and being able to get together once or twice a week and essentially be together and socialize and work on those types of skills together and model certain things. And then Sarah, as the trained counselor, is there to kind of walk them alongside that. And so we're using DESA data at the middle school and the high school level. They actually do a self-survey. And so instead of the teachers doing the survey, the students do it themselves. The self-survey at the high school was supposed to happen pretty recently, but we had a glitch in the system. So they're gonna be doing that pretty soon. Today was it today? Look at that, it was that soon. And I can tell you pretty soon, and it just happened. So we'll be collecting that data pretty soon. And then again, we do similar stuff with it. Counselors look at it, administrators look at it. The middle school right after Thanksgiving is actually going to pilot a self-survey themselves, because we realized with BASE, which is our social emotional curriculum, that among many other things gives us fire words, which, for example, are when a student is filling out a form by themselves and they enter in something that includes a concerning word about self-harm or harming others or something like that. It actually generates an email within the system that goes to me and it goes to the building counselors, so we can immediately follow up on that. So we realized that students are actually quite honest when they have anonymity and they're able to be truthful about things. So we've said, let's pilot a self-survey at the middle school level, because if that allows the middle schoolers in a protected way to share how they're really feeling. And so we're actually going to pilot one in English and then one that's exclusively in Spanish for those that are bilingual Spanish. Because if they're in their native language and they feel more comfortable sharing information, we don't want to lose that opportunity. So we're doing that with DESA. BASE has been underway. It's in grades 1 through 12. It has components where they do stuff in advisory. They also do stuff at home. BASE doesn't go down to kinder, so we've supplemented kinder with something called Sanford Harmony. And we're actually using Sanford Harmony at the pre-K level as well. So there's a marriage between the social emotional curriculum at preschool right up to kindergarten, and then it just kind of rolls right into BASE 1st grade through 12. And so then BASE does beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year, and then on the other side where the cameras are, that's just saying that or DESA does this on the left-hand side, and then BASE does full year all year long on the right-hand side.
Can I just
right.
interrupt for a second?
Yeah,
The
please.
elementary school on BASE, they're all lessons that are not using computer. So some parents were, concerned about that. So they will show a video perhaps, but all of the work is done in class with the teacher and discussion about whether it's kindness, empathy, whatever they're doing. So for the BASE part, that is non-computer at the elementary school.
Perfect. Thank you, Kate. And then you can find a lot of what we're doing with BASE. We've made it public. Parents can see it, community can see it. You go to the teaching learning page that Bonnie's done a terrific job with, right out of comprehensive school counseling, goes to the different SEL curriculums, which then you can load up. That's 9 through 12. You can see the different weeks, the different lessons, the resources, that kind of stuff. So it's all available for the public to be able to access. So they can appreciate the sense of transparency that when we're talking about social emotional learning, they can access it as well to know what we're teaching the children in that space. And then 1C, we won't roll around till 1C until the spring, because it's prioritized our curriculum and associated professional development from 22-23 data to then use for 23-24 decisions. And so essentially that indicator tells us that in the spring, and we're going to get together initially on the 5th of April, 2023, as the team to get together and to start to look at that data and figure out how it will carry us into 23, 24. We leverage the things that we're doing really well, and then we adjust the things that can be adjusted to do them better.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then we just, in closing, I've got 7 seconds. Obviously, the graphic speaks for itself, but as much as we are in the business of teaching the mind, we will not be able to teach the mind unless we address the heart at the same time.
Just real quick on the teachers, that when they're asking, you said 7 questions they're asking the kids?
The DESA mini, it's,
Yeah,
well, the
the
teachers do them, they do them themselves, and so it's like 7 to 10
The
questions.
kid, you give them a sheet, they answer the questions off a sheet, or do the teacher?
No, the teacher actually will do it like after school. They just go down their roster, does this.
I see.
Yeah.
It doesn't, you're not interviewing kids.
No.
They're just going through their.
Correct.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's,
Some of the questions that.
so, you know,
A teacher would ask.
so does the child blurt out frequently, or are they able to stay quiet when they're supposed to stay quiet? Does the child cry, you know, during class? And it's normed for different, so kindergarten or first grade questions may be different than 5th grade questions, but it's questions that the teacher themselves can answer. They're not interviewing
They're not interviewing
Correct.
each one.
Yeah.
They're just going by what they're.
What they
noticing,
see.
What they see.
which is why we take it in October to give them a month, 5
I think it's-
weeks
Yeah.
to get to know the children. So they have some degree of fidelity when but then they go and they do the same ones in January and then do the same ones in May. And we've done this for a couple of years now. And you can actually see changes in how the teachers report after they really get to know the children, after the counselors do their small groups. And, you know, obviously the goal is however many in the alarming group and the mid-level group that you have in September, that by January and by May, there's fewer and fewer of those because we are recognizing their gaps in social emotional comportment and competency and working to fill those with, you know, the ways that we're able to with counseling and other resources.
It makes the teacher, it kind of forces them to really notice small things that are happening in their.
The child, absolutely.
It's great, perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next goal we have is goal number 2, which is our equity and inclusion goal, and that is Dusty and Andrew.
Hello.
Hey there.
So, yeah, I mean, Creighton gave a good spiel on why goal number 1's the most important. But I would say goal number 2 is equally, or maybe even more important. than
So we
goal
should have 4 number 1 goals.
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
number 2. Just wait until goal number 4. No, but SEL obviously extremely important, social emotional learning. But honestly, goal number 2 centered around equity. I would say, at least for me, it's one of the more abstract things that I think we talk about in the district. What is equity? How do we make things equitable? Especially with our population growing and being much more diverse, especially this school year. I joke that we're the International School of Jervis now because we have so many different languages. So how do we reach each and every one of those individuals? I don't think anybody has the answer to that. So that's the challenge with goal number 2. So cultivating equity by honoring diversity, using inclusive practices and supporting students to achieve their unique potential. You'll notice the highlighting for the words equity, diversity, and inclusive, which is really the 3 key components. So indicator 2A, the Jervis School District Equity Committee will use the resolution and commitment to educational access and inclusion adopted by the Jervis School District Board of Directors last school year to identify our equity lens guiding questions and begin their application. So it's really taking the document that you guys created last year and really trying to use that to take it a step forward and create a series of questions that we can kind of use to guide all major decisions in the district. That's the biggest piece that we're gonna try to get out of it this year. And that's specifically what Dusty and myself and the equity team's working on right now. So he'll talk about that in a little bit. And then the second performance indicator, continue offering diversity, equity, and inclusion, focused professional development opportunities for all staff and board members. We did a lot of that work last school year. And going forward, you'll see that work's continuing. I don't think we can do enough of that. And I think that the work we kind of started last year district-wide, you'll see that we're now taking a step to maybe not necessarily have everybody in the district a part of those conversations, but really choosing key players to guide that work for the district in each building.
Would that be more like, are you thinking something more like an ambassador? So where you take a group of individuals and
Yep.
they would be more of who could go in and teach, I guess, the other staff members on that kind of a thing?
Yeah, specifically right now, each building's kind of creating their own equity team.
Okay.
And then the plan is actually starting next week. All of us coming together, Jervis High School, middle school, elementary school team.
Mhm.
Along with hopefully the Jervis School District equity team, which is a different group. And everyone guiding that work. Last year was a great jumping off point with our district-wide Carrick meetings and that kind of thing. But I think the thought is when you get that many people in a room, sometimes it's just maybe I'm not saying it's not the right approach, but it's different than when you maybe take smaller groups of pockets of people to maybe send the message to the rest of the group. Yeah.
Sometimes it's received better from your peers.
Right.
Than it is from someone who.
Yeah.
Even though I realize he's Mo Carrick, I think he's done the Brene Brown stuff, right? I mean.
So, yeah, Mo is a woman.
Is a
Mo
woman, okay, sorry.
Yeah, uh-huh.
But, okay, so I'm just.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah,
on that.
yeah.
That philosophy.
And then the third indicator, all administrators, counseling team, and club advisors will guide honoring and promoting educational access and inclusion through day-to-day practices. So that's kind of an overarching, okay, we're gonna do these things through the indicator A and B and honestly continue this work. And like I said at the beginning, and maybe I'm wrong in thinking this, but to me, equity really is, it's an abstract thing. And it's hard to access absolutely everybody in the district, but I think it's important. And especially with our group of students, I mean, we saw with the Youth Truth Survey results, a lot of them maybe don't think that we're being equitable with some of the things that we're doing. So I think it's important. Okay, I think this is me. Yep. So the current Jervis School District Equity Team, we meet the first Wednesday of every month at 9:30 at the elementary school. That's who we have right now. It's really who was on the team last year, except for I have kind of replaced Kent Stock. Dusty's replaced Sylvia because they're not with us. But we also have Fenya. I live with her. That's my wife. And then Mercedes and Raul, elementary school ELD teachers. Raul led a lot of this work last year. And then Gerardo, elementary counselor, and then Sandra's also part of the team. So, and you'll see in a minute, once Dusty takes over, we're really trying to grow that team and invite. I mean, if you want to be a part of this work, please come join the team. Because what I've found is people that are really passionate about this are really passionate about it and really want to get it right. So.
Yeah, so part of this is going to be training and providing PD to the staff. And it's fairly common practice right now that equity gets embedded almost in all trainings. And so when you look at things like math curriculum training or EL Achieve training, there's elements of equity and inclusion built into those trainings. And then, as we mentioned, Mo Carrick's starting next week. And then again in the winter and the spring. We've got about a handful from each building coming in to be part of that. And then to be able to take that back to those buildings. But truth be told, that there's gonna be, you can go to the next slide. A lot of that PD, I think, still needs to be developed, and it's going to come from a survey that's being sent out. We know we're coming on the heels of this Youth Truth Survey, so it's not to like survey overload staff. We decided we're going to wait till Monday But we do want to first get an idea of staff members that want to be part of that equity team. And I think for staff, it's important to know when they see who's on that team, like, oh yeah, okay, I feel like my voice, my perspective is represented there. I think others might look at me like, oh, like, I want to be part of that because I don't feel like my voice, my perspective is being captured by that current team. So we wanted to share who's on the team and then that invitation for others to join. And then just building administrators will do what we need to do to get coverage for those people to be able to participate, because we do meet during the school day on Wednesdays. And then the other two questions we're asking staff, one is, do they have any concerns, with issues surrounding equity, diversity, and inclusion in the district that need to be addressed? And then are there questions that they want or things they want to learn about? And that's what's going to drive, I think, some of those other PD opportunities. And so as we start hearing back from staff, oh, wow, there's a gap in information, or they got wonderings or curiosities, then those are things that we need to then be able to provide some additional information, presentations, things like that. And in addition to that, we also want to send another survey out to parents. And this one, I think, has a very different focus. They're all open-ended questions. We try to keep the questions really simple, but we just want to know from families, do they feel like the district understands? Do we feel like the district is including them, is communicating with them? Do they feel like the district's being supportive and challenging their kids? Do they feel like they got access to the resources that they need? And so those questions there. And both of these surveys are going to be anonymous, with the option and the encouragement to please put contact information, so that if a family feels I'm going to be more honest, under the cloak of anonymity, then we're going to allow that. But if they're like, hey, no, I want you to reach out to me because I do have concerns, I do have issues. But that one's going to be going out. This one is going to happen right after Thanksgiving. So staff's going to get surveyed next week. And then after Thanksgiving, then we're going to reach out to the community. And the reality is, just when you look at the Youth Truth Survey results for parent participation, it is low. But I think we realize that quality over quantity. So even if we get however many respondents, like that information alone could be incredibly valuable. And so we're not naive to think that not every family is going to respond to this survey. But again, those who do, I think it'll be incredibly valuable.
I think it'll be interesting to see the response to these surveys and then compare it to Youth Truth. I think that'll be really, really valuable to see, because Youth Truth has a lot of equity stuff in it too, so.
And then, so this is the equity and inclusion lens that we included with you. On the back side, which is the image on the right. So this is a synthesis of the resolution that was passed by the school board last year. And this is pulled verbatim, but we just wanted to condense it down a little bit, just so it was a little more manageable for staff to work with. And then we just bolded some key elements. And so a lot of it, this resolution was about providing a caring and supportive environment, about partnering with the community, engaging with respect, listening authentically, sharing in the decision-making, providing equitable access and systems that are inclusive, and just helping every student feel safe, welcomed, and included. So we love that resolution. We want that to be really what's driving this lens. And then on the front side, we had pulled various examples. And I think the team, this is just a draft, liked the simplicity. There were some lenses, some tools that were just so long and complicated and cumbersome that it just wouldn't get used, right? And so we wanted it simple enough that it would actually be used in practice. And so what this lens really is that for any district policy, practice, activity, that these questions can be asked to make sure, are we making sure that we have all the voices in this decision? Who's going to be impacted, right? What barriers do we need to address? And so that's what these questions are. So none of this is final. We're sharing this out with that equity team and the new members. And then we'll come back and present a more finished draft to the school board. But it's something like this, just very simple, that we want to be able to just, in everything that we're doing, just make sure, are we being equitable? Are we, celebrating diversity, and are we being as inclusive as we can?
I think the team was very big on, we want a one-page.
Simple.
Because a lot of times we'll throw out so many documents in the school district that it's like, nobody's got time to read this whole thing. And so a simple one pager that people could use as a tool to help guide decisions, it makes it more real to use it. That was the thought behind kind of the draft of this document.
And then just the last piece here. So just the next steps for the equity team. So we are meeting every month. And those have been great meetings. It really is it's an amazing group that's been meeting. And we imagine that group's going to grow with a few more participants. Again, the surveys going out to the staff and to the community. And then we're gonna participate with Mo Carrick. And then I think where it's really gonna start having an impact is then we start using this lens to then begin to look at probably initially any concerns that came out of the surveys. I think that's what's gonna get addressed immediately. But then just in moving forward, anytime there's a district activity or considering a new policy or practice, we can go back to that lens. And that's what that equity team is gonna be able to do this year, is to really, in that process, I think, get a sense, does this lens work for our district? You know, or do we need to tinker with it or things like that? So it's gonna be a living document. But yeah, so super excited for that.
I've asked the team that once they kind of get a draft done, to then go back and look at some previous decisions or ideas or policies and try to apply the tool to it to see how it worked. And then, so as they're moving forward, like they can, oh, yeah, that does not work in this situation. So maybe there's some tweaks that need to be made. If you're looking at an activity versus a policy versus.
Any questions?
I like the one page. I do too. I mean, straight to the point, and always dig deeper once you answer those. But it gives you a nice starting point.
No, honestly, I don't see there being an ending point to any of this type of, I mean, you're gonna take a document, you're gonna create it, it's gonna get tweaked constantly, depending on the needs of the district. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of the EDI work everywhere, including my work. And so this is really good. And one of the things I'm wondering about is, do we kind of have a handle on like where we were and what people, like you said something about some of the students felt like in that survey, that maybe what I'm noticing right now is I've been talking to a lot of different people from different schools, and you know what? We're doing a really good job because compared to some of the things that I hear, it's an outrage, really, seriously.
Yeah.
Like over in Mount Angel, over in, I mean, things that they're so close to us. And I think just celebrating over at Dia de los Muertos, that I thought that was such a beautiful representation of our diversity here and how beautiful it really is. So I feel like you guys have been working toward that for a very long time.
Yeah, the first Youth Truth, when it came out, I remember one of the big overarching things we saw was, I mean, students were saying, you don't value my culture. I don't see my culture represented here. And it was like, whoa, okay, well, that's an issue. Because we have a really diverse student body. And if they're saying, you know, this isn't working for me, I have a lot, I'll just say it, we have a lot of white teachers and they don't necessarily represent our student body sometimes, then we need to get that right. Because I don't think that's who we want to be as a district, and that's not who we are. So I agree with you, and thank you for saying.
I love prom when the kids come back and they're dancing to Spanish music and, you know, doing la quebradita and doing all that stuff. It's so cute. I love it. You know, where else are they doing? What other schools?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
It's very cool.
it is super cool.
How many different languages do we have now in school?
I want to say 7 or 8 probably represented. I mean, we've had a lot of, I mean, we have Ukrainian students now. We even have the different dialects of Spanish, right? I mean, that's not.
There's a bunch here.
Russian, we have, is it Hmong?
Oh, we have them all. Yes.
Guatemalan. And I mean, and yeah, we're trying to get in front of it. And I mean, some of the work Creighton's done, the special programs has been fantastic.
New high schooler speaks Vietnamese. So we can have Vietnamese to the.
Japanese, we have 2.
Yeah, so, I mean-
Japanese,
That's awesome.
yeah, International School Service.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
And next we have roll number 3, and that will be Bonnie Atwood and Tony Johnson.
I don't need a booster anymore. I'm good. All right, so
Can you see?
I'm Tony Johnson. There's a glare, but I got it. Okay, so Bonnie and I and Dandy, actually, our goal number 3. So link the district's preschool, I'm sure you guys can read it, but preschool through grade 12 curriculum to state standards, select and apply the best instructional strategies, and use assessments to measure student progress and adjust instruction. So this is really the nuts and bolts of the curriculum and what we're teaching. Performance indicator 3A, align all district scope and sequence documents in Oregon Department of Education, ODE. Academic content standards, just jump in if you're like, ooh, what are we talking about? District scope and sequence. We'll have a picture coming up, because if you're like me and visual, you want to kind of see what does that look like? So that's coming up. Implementation, all the Jervis School District curriculum documents will be aligned to ODE's academic content standards on or before February 1st of 2023, coming up really quickly here. Really quickly. And posted to district websites. So a lot of that is already happening, right? I mean, it's being put on. Preschool. This work was not started last year. It was identifying curricula in use at the preschool by November 30th, which is coming very close there. Write the scope and sequence documents aligning curricula to state standards by January 13th, and edit and post the scope and sequence documents to district website by February 1st. As you can probably guess, preschool is kind of a different animal all in its own. So that's a thing that's still being worked on. All right, so here's the elementary school. Align all district scope and sequence documents to Oregon Department of Education.
Actually, I think the slides are out of order.
Did we miss the?
Did I?
We should have. Did we miss the example?
Something's not right.
Oh, there we go. There we
Is
go.
that the example?
Yeah, there we go. So this is what it looks like here to view the curriculum if you want to see what it looks like. So select the teacher learning tab on the district homepage. So you start there and then go down to choose the building level curriculum that you want. So the top right with the little B, there would be your elementary school. And then we have the middle school and high school down here. Okay. Open the subject specific scope and sequence documents. So looking at, history or language arts, etc. So here is an example of what it looks like. So even though it says kindergarten on it, they all physically look the same. I'm going to stand up here. The top horizontal line right here, all the title was the same. I could vouch for that because I did this for history last year because I was a 7th and 8th grade history teacher. So I wrote a couple of these and we have all the same titles. So it didn't matter what grade you were, what subject you were teaching, and then you just filled in vertically down. So it starts right here with the unit and title. So this is unit 0. So it would be right at the very beginning. And we are special. And then it estimates about 3 weeks long. So it really keeps the teachers kind of on track to what's happening. So this should take about 3 weeks. Why? Purpose? Why are we doing this? Students will become acquainted with each other and master learning routines. Then it goes over to your standards. So literally looking at what standards are covered. The K stands for kindergarten. And then you have all the RF reading foundations, etc. Content goals. So these are what students should know by the end of it, of this 3 weeks. So students will know how everyone is special, who is in their family, and what they can do. Learner outcomes, students will be able to. So it's kind of, these key things are really telling you what do they need to know and how are they going to get there, right? So how are they able to do this? They're going to do segment sentences, recognize upper and lowercase letters, recognize the rhyme, recognize blend syllables, and identify story details. And then this is what they're going to be using to get that information to the students. So that would be McGraw-Hill, which would be the curriculum that was approved by the school board. And then there's also Animals in the Park, an ABC book, and Big Books of Rhymes. So any of the material that the teacher is going to be using in kindergarten to do this would be listed over there to the right. So looking at that, you should be able to know how they're doing it, what they're using, and what the final outcome should be in that time period.
And if a parent wants to be able to acquire the learning, the resources, the materials, can they, I'm assuming they could go into the classroom and get that? Or
They
there's-
certainly are welcome to see it. We would encourage parents to contact the building administrator, or they can contact my office. We've been working on building the curriculum library. So all of the materials are located in one place. If we know parents coming in, I can have them all pulled and ready to see. We can't always provide copies, especially digitally because of copyright laws, but we absolutely want to make those available for people to see.
Yeah, thank you. That transparency is really helpful.
It's so important, and we're always saying, what a great job you all are doing, wherever we go,
Yeah.
about the transparency. We appreciate that.
So should I go?
I
back?
was just a comment. Almost all of the scope and sequence documents look this way, and this is very similar also to what we're using for social emotional. Brayton showed an example of a slide for one of those scope and sequence documents. They are just a little bit different at the high school level. Those at the top have a course description right out of the student course catalog. They indicate the area in which credit would be awarded. So if a student completes the class, would the student earn language arts credit or math credit or an elective
Very
credit?
good.
And how much credit is earned each semester. So that was information that didn't seem as important at the elementary or the middle
Right.
school, but it is added onto the high school document.
That's great.
So should, is that? Is this the right slide? The elementary school could probably be that. Not sure what happened here.
Am I going back?
Yeah,
go.
there we go.
There
We're
you go.
going
That's
backwards.
I'm out of
You want to
order.
talk about the
Because
elementary?
I'm out of
Me
order,
too.
so I'll jump in here. I'll do the elementary. Okay, so Jervis Elementary School. So 3A, all the school district curriculum documents will be aligned to OD's academic content standards on or before February 1st and posted to the district website. So at the right, you have the elementary school. This work is mostly complete, so a little bit to go, but we're getting there. There is your scope and sequence documents for math, science, social studies, language arts, and SEL are posted. So you saw what they visually should look like. Scope and sequence documents for music and PE are due from teachers by November 18th. So that's like a week away. Those will replace documents written by teachers who are no longer with the district.
We actually have the PE and the music documents that were turned in by teachers who were employed last year. But right away, our new PE and music teacher wanted the documents to reflect what they are currently doing in their classrooms. So they promised they would have them by November 18th. And if not, we have backup documents we can post.
Professional development time to educate staff on SB 13, which is the tribal history shared history requirement, is scheduled for April 26th. So this is a House bill that was passed last year, right? It was pretty recently. Right?
Yeah, before,
Was it a couple
before
years
last
ago?
year.
Bringing in tribal history into the schools. Because it was, we have that in Oregon. I mean, that's a huge part of Oregon. And it's kind of been forgotten, unfortunately. So this is a really good thing, bringing that in. What different tribes, what history do we have? It's because it's rich in Oregon. Time for staff to add the House Bill 13, the tribal history, shared history content, and ensure all state standards are included in the scope and sequence documents is scheduled for May 17th. For example, there are Oregon history requirements that are not met in our adopted social studies materials. So staff will need to identify when those standards will be taught and what materials will be used. Because Oregon history, obviously, it's very specific. And the things that the social studies books, like I can attest to the ancient civilization, that's not going to have it in it. And the US history textbook that I used last year. Yeah, in westward expansion, it's going to have a little bit of the Oregon Trail, a little bit on it. But that's one tiny part of Oregon history and the tribal history. So yes, we will have to supplement. Definitely.
And we worked to get this initial core set of scope and sequence documents completed. But as you can see, we're needing to back up and fill in some of the gaps that are still there.
But the great thing about this work that we have not done before is that we now have a reference point and we know where the gaps are, or being able to identify where the gaps are. Which is going to have long-ranging, positive implications later. Okay.
There we go, middle school. So working with the same standards, we're just at the middle school now. This work is also mostly completed. We have scope and sequence documents for math, science, social studies, language, arts, music, PE, and health. Those have all been submitted, although only the SEL has been posted for the middle school and the high school levels. Things became much more complicated when we left the elementary school. At the elementary school, we discovered the teachers very often used the sample scope and sequence documents supplied by the publishers. This is most likely because they are teaching foundational skills and those need to be taught sequentially. You can't really do unit 1 and then skip to unit 5 and then back up and do unit 2 and then insert your own, or you have huge pieces of learning that are missing. But at the middle school and high school, teachers tend to approach their content a little bit differently. So it took much longer to complete the writing of the scope and sequence documents at the middle school and the high school. And when they were submitted, they were much more varied and proved a lot more challenging to edit so that they were in a standardized format. And we thought it was really important that everything be standardized. Parents tend to have students who are in more than one grade level, in more than one building, or at the secondary level, taking classes with more than one teacher. And we wanted it to be easy and transparent for people to find out what the materials were, what was being taught, how things were being managed in each class. That work is nearly finished at this point, and you will start to see those showing up here. Even before Thanksgiving, we'll have middle school scope and sequence documents posted. The middle school last year decided to write for core content areas, but not for their electives. What we are adding this year are electives that feed into the career and technical programs at the high school level. We're fortunate enough with Willamette Career Academy courses to be able to free up technology teachers, career level teachers at the high school to teach electives at the middle school. So the electives being offered at the middle school are going to be much more stable. Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but past practice has pretty much been teachers select an area of interest, something they feel that will be engaging to students, and develop a course. And oftentimes that means you have a course that's taught one time and one time only. And it's challenging to have a scope and sequence document prepared before the class starts. And after the class is finished, it's like, I'm never going to teach that again. So therefore, why would I want to develop a scope and sequence document for it? So as we're looking to have more permanent and more impactful electives at the elementary school, we will be adding the scope and sequence documents. And the middle school and high school are in the same situation with Senate Bill 13 as the elementary school. So we will be training staff on Senate Bill 13, acquainting them with available resources to be adding into their programs and giving them time to do that work this spring. And again, going back and making sure that we really do have all of those standards included in all of our courses. And high school, if things became a little more complex at the middle school, they really became complex at the high school. And that's another reason the work was able to be completed so much faster at the elementary school. At the elementary school, we have 3 teachers teaching at each grade level. So of those 3 teachers, one could write the scope and sequence for language arts, and one could write for math, and one could write for science, and they could toss for who got to write for social studies, I guess. At the middle school, it wasn't too bad. We have one teacher teaching 6th grade language arts pretty much all day. One teacher teaching 7th grade social studies pretty much all day. Not a lot of scope and sequence documents to be completed. But when we arrive at the high school, we were asking some teachers to do just a huge lift in preparing these documents. So some teachers are teaching 8 or 9 or 10 courses over the school year. And to develop one of these documents,
Hours, trust me.
oh, yeah. Absolutely. And pulling together all the resources for those classes and then doing the actual write-up itself. And if it's a class that a teacher had never taught before, it's like, and I want you to do this now up front. We'll help you, but you need to do all the work. And so we are just getting those documents, the last of them in now. And working with teachers who are teaching classes that are brand new this fall, who were not even involved in writing documents for curriculum last year. But our goal is to have all of those posted by the start of second semester, by that February 1st date here. So that's where we're at. We're refining those documents now. And then this spring, they will add the tribal history and double check for standards. Performance indicator 3B is where we select instructional strategies that help students make significant growth to achieve grade level standards in core subject content. Dandy, Tony and I met October 21st. We are going to be working with explicit, sometimes called direct instruction. This is purposeful instruction that utilizes researched learning strategies to improve student learning for all students. Although there's a really strong research base on how it especially benefits special education and English learners. We also realized that we need a different methodology for rolling out professional development. The secondary buildings have professional development time 1 or 2 afternoons a month, and those dates fill up very quickly. So we are looking at taking this out through email, through videos, during short periods of time at staff meetings. And we are in the planning stages for that right now. For this year, we're going to focus on 4 strategies, 1 each month for January, February, March, and April. And then we will continue next fall. We've identified 4 strategies, one each for October, November, December, and January. And I guess if it's going well, we'll continue it beyond there. There are at least 14 different strategies, and I'm sure the list will continue to grow that fall into the explicit instruction heading. And finally, performance indicator 3C, implement the newly adopted iReady K-12 diagnostic program, analyze results and make necessary adjustments to instruction. That is well underway. In August, we had a webinar for building administrators on how to implement the iReady assessment. In September, before we administered the first diagnostic, we had another webinar for teachers. These webinars are professional training segments provided by iReady. Maybe provide, it's the wrong word. We purchased these from iReady. In September, grades 1 through 12 took the first diagnostic. Grade K takes the first diagnostic 6 weeks into the school year. This is a digital assessment, and many kindergarten students have no prior experience using iPads or Chromebooks, and so the teachers need to prepare the students to take a digital assessment there. We had a beginning of the year data review at the end of September, and we also had another webinar for teachers on how to interpret that data as well. In January, we will administer the second diagnostic The items in light gray are ones that have not yet occurred. The ones in black have already taken place. In February, we have an assessment. So teachers will learn how to look at data from the first diagnostic and data from the second diagnostic, monitor the progress students have made so far, and adjust their instruction as necessary to maximize student learning. And diagnostic 3 will occur in May, and then we will use that full year data and the end of the year data for our strategic planning meeting for next year. Questions?
One last quick comment about the scope and sequence. As a principal, it was wonderful to have. Think of it like a manual to a new TV that you bought. I had 2 new staff members and I handed them the scope and sequence and said, here you go. This is what you do. And this has the year spelled out. I mean, they are brand new teachers and you could almost physically see the relief on their face. Oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. And oh, this is 3 weeks and this is 4 weeks. Yeah, it was a lot of work. I admit it was a lot of work and the teachers were not thrilled to do it. But boy, is it nice to have for those new teachers to come in and hand that to them.
I think it's really nice for new teachers or teachers who never taught a course before.
Yes.
But we also had a lot of gratitude from experienced teachers who arrived and it's like, I've never had one of these before. This is amazing.
I can only imagine how much time that would save. I mean, just from a training and learning and development standpoint for one of those new, for one of your direct reports there for a teacher. That's a huge job. Yes,
thank
nice
you.
job.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next goal is goal 4, which has to do with our bond. So even though I give you an update basically every month on what's happening, I felt it was important to be a little bit more specific and purposeful with this update. And so, where are we at right now? That in our strategic plan, we said that we would research information for the May 2022 bond. We would also look at what we had selected as bond projects and have the architect price out what later construction date would be. And that then we would also start a campaign that would inform voters on the benefits of the projects for staff, students, and the community itself. So where we're at right now, just a summary, remember we ran the survey in July and August. You got those results with the city council at that joint meeting back in September. In the July and August survey, we had 78 people responded to that. In the fall survey, we had 4 responses.
I don't think I saw one come across.
Well, it was the same survey. So did you not get it in July and
I
August?
did. I
Okay,
did
so
get that one.
the October one was the same survey, but it was sent to people on the postcards in the specific precincts,
Okay.
as
That's
well as
fine.
when they came to one of the community engagement nights, they could scan a QR code.
Okay.
So-
4.
Huh?
4.
Yeah. But
Okay.
again, I like what
So
Andrew said.
stubborn.
It's not about quantity, it's about quality responses.
Were they quality?
You know what? It's telling us the same thing as the 78 people said. It's, they supported the bond or they wanted to support the bond, but it was too much. Okay. Well, there was very little negative feedback about it in terms of not believing. There were 1 or 2 responses that were kind of like that, and it was the same person. I couldn't tell who the person was, but I can see that person's response. So the person that accused me of embezzling funds and like I was going to take bond dollars to build, I don't know what. I could pull up that
Maybe
person's
you
whole
didn't get a bathroom.
responses, and all the way through the survey, they were negative, right? So it wasn't like 40 of the 78 people were responding negatively. So we did that preliminary engagement and feedback again, and then we did tours and community engagement. And so I would have to say that the October 25th face-to-face meeting was the most productive because the city council, well, it was the mayor candidate. They all brought people with them. And I would say that a lot of the people that were there probably had not supported the bond. And so going through and having them have the opportunity to ask really specific questions and then see the buildings, it changed, I feel like it changed their perspective.
It did, they told me so.
Yeah,
Yes.
Well, it changed my perspective even more to that, like, when I did it,
yeah,
and I mean, I was for it, but
right.
like. really
Yeah, when you
wanted
really
to
like keep the
Laying your
diagram.
eyes on there and
Mhm.
being in the rain, it's really helpful.
I do have to say that a lot of moms were messaging about the other meetings and it was just, there's a lot of like going
Yeah,
on, so
it's,
they,
yeah,
but they were all like, I'm sure it's about the bond. We need to make it pass.
Okay,
So I
Well-
think that they were already like on the page,
Yep.
so. They're like, I'm there.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily
Yeah.
feel, I
Yeah.
didn't feel like it's
Right.
necessary.
Yeah. Which is great, because now we know who those people are too. We
Mhm.
need to know who those people are. So, and then we did some publications, so you should have all received in the mail this document, your October newsletter. You'll have a December newsletter coming out, which will have a one-pager that's kind of board focused. And then, so this went to a household. We have like 4,000 registered voters, so we narrowed it down. Each household with one registered voter got one of these. So then we also did the 2 postcards. So when I mailed the postcards to 2 precincts that had the largest voter turnout for no, we got 2 responses on the QR code for the survey questions. One was, actually, they both said that they would support the bond. But there were some negative comments, but again, it wasn't anything we hadn't seen or heard before. And then I have met with Ken Stott and given him the precinct lists. And there's a couple of key people who said that they were willing to help, have community meetings with those representatives from those precincts who we know voted no. But Ken's request was also that we identify a board member who could be a point person for those 2 precincts. So obviously, it's not something you have to decide right now, but I think that there is power in being able to say, hey, you can always go to Dandy for questions, but this board member is your person for your questions. They're going to be at the next meeting or whatever. So I'll let you guys kick that idea around. And then I have a conversation with a marketing firm. I got the name from Renee Weiler at Data Vision. They're called Millennial Reach, and they're based in Woodburn, and they're a bunch of millennials. And they do all sorts of kinds of outreach. And so I have a meeting with Christian on the Monday before Thanksgiving. He's going to come out here, and I've shared with him that what we want to look at is I want 4 or 5, 3, 4, 5-minute videos that just shows the need. Like he understood that we can't say vote yes, but we can say the why. And so he's like, oh yeah, I get puppy dogs and kids crying. We can make that happen. I don't need
It'd be good though.
kids crying.
I
And
have to walk to the bathroom.
yeah. And we talked about part of their fee includes 100 social media posts, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, whatever. And then could he look at some radio ads? He's like, no, your Russian community and your Hispanic community are still listening to the radio.
Oh, they do.
And so we can do that. And so I'm excited for what can come out of this conversation, because I think that he's kind of got that energy of that segment of population that we can really activate. So that's fun. So we are
An add to Lars Larson. Everybody listens to Lars Larson in the Russian community. Everyone. If you're a farmer, you do. You do. This is the only channel we get.
They're combine.
Or in their
That's
truck,
awesome.
fixing their combine.
We are reconvening the pre-bond planning committee, and so I will need to have a board member that is able to serve on that committee again. I've asked the previous members, of course, there's some people who can't do it this year couple people moved away, so we've got our core. And then I'll be recruiting for new ones. So for instance, the one particular patron, the woman, is her name Kathy? That went to the October 25th community engagement piece.
Oh, Laura, I think. Would you-
I'll ask, okay, yeah. Anyway, I think she would be a good person to be on the committee because I believe represents a vote that, we've changed her mind. So she was at the
Yeah,
meeting.
that's who she's talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's Laura.
Laura.
Yeah.
So, so we reconvene on November 28th, which is the Monday after Thanksgiving. For the people that are new to the committee, I'm going to ask them to come in at 5 so I can get them up to speed on how did we get here. And then everybody else will show up at 6 o'clock. We'll feed people. And then Rebecca Stucker from IBI Group will come in with the updated costs. I'll give the committee what the survey feedback says. And then we'll kind of hash out, what do you want to recommend to the board? What do we think? What do I need to research between November 28th and, January 3rd work session? And then we will come to the board during your work session. You'll get the information and give us marching orders about what you want us to do next. The committee will convene on the 9th to take care of that. And then if necessary, we'll meet again on the 30th to finalize the plan to present to the board. So you have to, if you're going to file for another bond for the May election, it's at the end of February. So you would have at your February regular board meeting, you would need to take action there to say, yes, we're doing this. And so I feel like that will give us plenty of time to really nail the costs down about what we're looking at. And then right now, the architect is looking at numbers for a 2025 construction start date. But I'll have a pre-planning meeting with Rebecca on the 18th of November. So if I get something that's just earth shattering out of that meeting, I'll send you an email and let you know that I've sent you the email about any information she might give us.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, with we had the voting on Tuesday
Yes.
and listening to all the reports, I mean, Portland passed huge bond.
Oh, yes.
Like 450 million or
Yes.
something like
Yes,
that.
they did.
And so there were so many schools that had theirs. Was ours just timed incorrectly? I mean, was it like one of those things that people are voting at in November more? Or is it like,
do with time.
I mean, what did
on
they
now.
do? Like, how?
Well, they didn't.
415 million?
Yeah, they didn't, it's really unusual to do a May election for a bond and then turn around and do a November one. Because you would have had to have filed at the end of July. And I don't know that we would have been able to gather enough information to figure out, okay, what do we do now? Because I don't think it's a very,
But there was like not only Portland, there's like so many.
oh
other
no, but
schools.
they
So
have
no,
all
but like,
had
how
bonds
do they-
before.
Yes, they have,
Yeah.
but like, how
They-
do they get them to pass?
Well, I think part of the issue is that they've always had a bond,
Yep.
so everybody just knows that's how you do it. Like, oh, that's just what you do.
They're wealthier too, you guys. This is a really
I think when you're not used to having to pay for those kinds of improvements on your building, then when somebody comes to you and says, I want you to raise your property taxes, and I know you've never done this before, you haven't done it for 38 years, like it's a huge mind shift, right? And so like Umatillas bond, they were able to pass that because they had a bond expiring. And so she just said, Superintendent Heidi's, okay, you're already paying, I'm gonna make this number up because I don't know what it was, $2.11. We're just asking for you to continue to pay the $2.11. Fine. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll do it.
But our timing, I mean, the thing is too, with the economy, the way it is, you have to think about that too, for the people that live
Mhm.
here, So not only are you asking them, hey, now pay a bunch, that you haven't had to before, but do it when you are already like not finding stuff at the grocery store and, it's like, However, it does need to be done.
Mhm.
and-
I mean, it has to obviously
know.
be spun in a different way. People didn't like how we did it. So I don't know.
I think
I-
the
like, I
amount
wonder-
of money was, $2.21. Whether they believed it or not,
There's where the thing was. I
yeah,
don't think they believed, because it kept on coming up that those numbers aren't adding up. Those aren't the right numbers.
Yeah.
They're lying to you about the
Mhm.
numbers. It's gonna be a lot more money on your taxes. There's where I think we lost the people that were on the edge. They were going to, then all of a sudden, so. I think this is where in my opinion, where this really's gotta be more black and white. I don't know how much more black and white we could have done it more last time. It just has to be where, I mean, every link that we would put on there, it would take them to the Marion County thing, but yet nobody, I don't know.
It helped when you sat down and talked to a few people,
Sure,
like went through the,
but
you know,
we
but
didn't get
yeah,
enough ears.
we didn't.
No, there were just
No.
not enough people that believed they were going more on social media than they were.
Well, I think
Right.
that
So,
started so much nonsense
um,
that it's almost broken this town. It's so crazy.
I think that,
I like this right here.
so these are numbers that were run for us in, at the end of August. I think I've showed this to you once before, but I wanted to just bring it up again. Like the preliminary numbers that Rebecca's running. She came back with something that's like $28 million. I said, Rebecca cannot go to the community with a $28 million bond. It's like, we just asked for 31. That's not going to go well.
No.
So, what I think we need to consider is what would a $20 million bond over 20 years get us? It would cost people $1.87 per thousand. So that's what, 13 cent, 20, so that's 40, no, so I can't even do math, 13 and 21 is 30, help me,
Don't look at me.
34 cents less than what we asked last time. So,
Okay.
because we were asking for $2.21.
Right.
So if you come at 20 million, it's $1.87. 20 million gets the middle school finished. And I think once you get a building that looks beautiful and we deliver exactly what we said we were going to deliver, then you start building that trust capacity. And I think that everybody who goes through the middle school recognizes, yeah, this is a problem.
It is. I mean, there is
Oh,
no,
wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
so.
Was the term 20 years last time too?
It was
Or
25
It was
years.
25.
And that was one of the things
other
that people
thing.
said, it was too
It
long,
was too long.
too much money and too long.
Yep.
So now we've shaved off 5 years. You've taken off $11 million.
Is there still organ money?
Yes, that the $20 million the $20 million bond would really be $24 million because we could get 4 million from the state. That grant is due on December 15th to the state, the grant request.
I like that 17 million one too, because that'll, with that 4, it gives us 21.
Still need to do the roof and that.
Yeah.
I understand.
So-
I think the $20 million bond with the 4 million gets you the middle school done and the high school roof repaired.
I think like anytime you look at numbers though, like logically, if you're under the $2 mark, so if it was 197, people will still think it's under $2. So like.
It's a
why-
deal. It's a great deal.
Yeah, so why can't we go like a little higher?
Okay.
And go like 197.
I can have her
Once it goes
calculate.
$2, they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
But as long as it's under,
It's
like
true.
literally, that's
You're
how.
right,
people
though.
think.
Yeah.
It's true.
Dude, I sell insurance. If you say it's this much, they're like, okay, and then you say, no, it's $1 more a month, and they're like, no, I don't want that. Leave it how it was.
I will have
There you
Lauren
go.
calculate to see how much we can
Literally.
ask. I will tell her, take us to what, $1.99? How
No,
much?
$1.97.
$1.97.
$9.97.
$1.97.
$1.99 is too close.
Okay.
But a
$1.97.
dollar
Well,
97.
it's funny how people
I-
are
they
are
do.
triggered.
They
They
I
are.
think
trigger.
Angie's right.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
They literally, that's what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, all the time.
So,
And if you want to go like with a dollar, if you do the 25 years, you're gonna be like, they won't, then they won't think 25 years. They're gonna be like, oh, it's only $1.50. Like, it's not.
I can have her
Like,
run
they literally,
20 and
that's
25
how
years.
people think.
So here's the other piece that I was thinking about is that whatever project you decide on. Okay, we know we can get the $4 million. So in theory, in most districts, this is what happens, is that then every 6 years, you can get another grant. So if we get this bond to pass in 2023, let's just go for $20 million, so we really have $24 million worth of projects. And then in 2029, you go to the voters and you say, okay, now we're gonna ask you for another $9 million. And we get 4 from the state, it's 13. Then you can finish all the rest of the projects we were trying to do.
Oh,
Well, because they're gonna taste it and
Mhm.
they're gonna be like,
Yeah.
we
It's not
didn't
gonna hurt
feel
anymore.
it,
Right.
we didn't
Yeah.
feel what the
Yeah.
difference was.
Yeah.
They would probably even go more because they're gonna now see
And-
what their
yeah.
money is.
And the
getting back.
increase in the cost will have been recovered because you got another $4 million from the state that we hadn't planned on during the life of that first bond we were going
And
for.
the nice thing about a small community is they all drive by the school.
Mhm.
So then they're like, I see what my money is paying for, and
Yeah.
I'm proud of my community, so I'm okay with paying
Mhm.
just like that little more.
Mhm.
Cause you can hear that also in the
Yeah.
surveys. We'd like to see our little
Mhm.
community look nicer and things there, so. No, that's as good a plan as we have any. So, I like it.
So that's, that's if, I just want to make sure that that's a direction you can initially support, and, or if there's other ideas that you want me to explore while we're doing all of this. So that you have, because you really don't have a lot of time, once you get the first report, to decide.
Yeah, cause what did it say? What do we have to do by May?
You have to file, the paperwork by February 24th, elections office.
February.
So you'd have to take action at your February. board
February
meeting.
meeting.
But you have to apply for the grant.
I can already apply for the grant. I don't need to know, I don't need to say we're gonna go for a bond. I can say anticipated bond and, yeah, we're fine.
In my opinion, it would be nice to
You
do
know what I'm thinking,
the
right?
25
You're
years
thinking-
for more money, and
Yeah,
if you can
going
get it
back.
at that like $1.59 for 25 years, people would go
Consider.
for that. For how much can we get for that?
I agree. with
Because-
Angie. I agree
Because
with you.
people look at not the 25 years, then they're looking at, oh, it's only $1.59.
Okay.
They really do.
No, I am going more towards, I mean, I would love to go for the 31, but no, let's
But,
go for the.
let's see what we can get for $1.59 for 25 years. How much would that add up to?
I will have, Lauren run multiple numbers for us.
And I like the idea of going back in another 4 or 5 years, saying, let's get another 9 million, 10 million, whatever it is, add on the 4.
And if you,
Finish off
that
everything.
number stays steady for 25 years. It's not like it has inflation, like your home insurance or like your property taxes, like they go up, like that figure will be
Yeah,
there.
steady.
Steady.
We have to come up with like a really good way of explaining why we're going down, asking for 20 million versus.
We heard your feedback. We understand that we need to start smaller. We're going to address the issue that impacts the most students right now.
Middle school
Right.
and the roof.
And we're gonna prove to you.
Cause I can already hear it, like seriously, like
Oh, I'm glad you. got this.
I may be the only one right here that's like, no, let's not go down, you know what I mean? But I mean, I get it.
But you also have to realize we are, as you were saying, from the economy standpoint, people feel a pinch and if and if they're feeling that pinch, they're gonna appreciate going down versus spending.
I also specifically know of families that I know voted no, but now their kids are going to the school this year. And now they're upset it didn't pass.
Isn't that,
They are.
I mean,
They literally, like, it was in a text message. It was like, we gotta get this to go. I know I had a conversation with you. Please go vote. I will pick up your ballot. And they ignored me, and I know that why they ignored me, because they didn't want it. So,
Okay, all right.
That's what I think.
Well,
Like now
you
they
guys
have like the
convinced me,
schools there.
okay.
Well, and then like with people like that, if they can just talk for other people and get them to change their mind.
Yep.
That's how it works. It's just like,
Yeah, it's
But
really
like Mandy
grassroots.
said, going down and then deliver what we said, and then Mandy said,
Once you see
They're
the
gonna
changes
go-
start happening, then they
go
will
feel around
support
and then.
more later.
Is it-
Yeah.
Okay, I just really, really want us to hit that message though, over and over and over and over again, because it's really important that we explain.
We will. Okay, so that's all I have for the bond. We're on to ELD achievement and our article, because that's the work you need to do for your scholarship with OSBA. So I have Craig here to kind of help us with some information. And Henry had also asked if we could take a look at the ELPA. Yes, that's the breaking word I'm looking at right now. And so we were able to, I pull up a link on that, but as we're kind of looking at some of these articles, was there anything that you saw in here that would kind of took you by surprise or was new information to you?
For me, it was about how many languages there are that the school has to deal with. And those were shocking.
I think even now, like what Andrew said about the internet, he jokingly said the International School of Service High School. When you see, like we don't have a lot of resources for newcomers. And so every time you get a new kid in who does not speak a language that we like can easily access, it is a struggle to figure out what to, so the article that talked about the kid coming in who speaks, what was it, Arabic?
Yeah.
You know, that is
Yeah.
how it is here, when you get a kid with a different language. So unlike Salem Kaiser, who has a whole department that deals with things like that.
Which one are you looking?
So like when we talked about better planning for newcomer students, like how do we just have systems in place so that we can, when those kiddos show up, we've got things for them to even function. So for instance, the Ukraine kids that we've had come in, we had a fire drill scheduled. And so I think I talked to Creighton, I said, wait a minute, these kids are not going to understand a fire drill, and they are literally coming from war-torn Ukraine. They like just out of the war zone. So are we going to create more trauma by now having them? It was the shakeout day, the earthquake day.
Oh,
Right, having them go under a desk and then evacuate a building. Like, I don't think that's probably a good idea.
And I personally have to speak from my own experience, because my son was asked to, walk around with the Ukraine.
Oh.
But he doesn't speak Russian to do that. And Ukraine is obviously a little bit of a different dialect also. But, so I asked him about this girl, and no matter what, he said, she's just sad. Like, no matter what, she's sad, she doesn't understand, she doesn't want to be there. So that was like his take on the whole scenario. So yes, like when you're like doing that, you were trying, but no matter what, there's so much emotions going
Right.
on.
Yeah, so
And
it's not
that
just about them
has to do-
showing
yeah,
up and
it's not.
us giving them a translation in English.
They have so
Spanish
much
dictionary,
going on in their
there's
heart.
Great, did you want to chime in on anything about the article or?
Sure, I think, what I'd like to, we won't do the full activity now. But I think a way to really kind of emphasize some of what the article speaks to in terms of the challenge of being an English language learner. Is yesterday I did some professional development training with the high school staff, and I gave them an envelope. And if you wouldn't mind opening up your envelope. We won't do the activity, but I'll kind of walk through, you'll see what they did. These were envelopes that were left over unused, so if yours happens to have a $5 Starbucks gift card. You're welcome to keep it. I was incentivizing.
That one.
some of the
You gotta go
staff
for
if the board's allowed to keep the $5.
we're not.
I'm not trying to bribe you. but- So this was the activity that I ran with them and depending on, at the top of it, it says you have to work alone. Some of them said you may work in with your elbow partner and you can whisper. Some of them, and so you can look at this. And the idea is you have 5 minutes to fill this out. And in some envelopes, all you got was this. Right? If this was all you got and you were working alone, the likelihood of you being able to fill this out correctly is almost zero, right? I mean, where do you even start with something like this? Some of them got to work with partners, and so you kind of whisper, and what do you think this is? And, you know, you can maybe start to piece it together. It weighs as much as 15. The largest is like, you know, it can dive down. So maybe you're thinking it's about whales, maybe. So you can kind of start to piece it together. You can brainstorm. Some of them got this and they could work with partners. And then they received this sheet right here, which had these absolute nonsense words. These are not words in the English language. They're not words in any language. They are just, you go to Google, you say, give me 15 words that don't even exist, right? Antists and raptor and homobrang and inatord and right, just nonsense words, but they're associated with pictures. And so like a whale is a ulip and the wind blowing is a nook, right? And so you could start to use this and start to say, okay, well, if I think this is about whales, I can start to, maybe the whale is a ulip, so I start to put that together. And then in the fourth grouping, you got this, which is the pictures, the actual English word for it. And so now I could take this and say, okay, I know that this picture means whale. And so whale means ulip. So here I go and I put down ulip. And the whole high school staff did this and they gave me 5 minutes. And those that got just this didn't get a single thing written down. And those that could work in pairs and got both of these completed the whole activity in under 5 minutes. And the point that I drove home to this teachers is you don't need expensive ELD training. You don't need to go to these EL Achieve Institutes. You don't need to know PSYOP and CLAD and all these kind of things, which we are providing to the teachers and they're valuable. And so I'm not saying that we don't need them, but what I'm saying is as something as simple as taking the time to create vocabulary lists with images and a word wall. So if you're a chemistry teacher here for this unit, here are the words that we are focusing on. When your ELs walk in there, they may look at a chemistry textbook and see this. How on earth can they learn with just this? But if they see a word wall up on the board that has, this is what electron is, and this is what an atom is, and this is what, you know, all of those different technical words that you can be socially competent. We have ELs that you could have a social conversation with and wouldn't know otherwise. Their academic language acquisition skills is what's holding them back in terms of their, you know, their growth and achievement. And so you're not going to pick up atom and electron and covalent bonds. And you're not going to, I mean, who knows that if you're just a social talker? But if you can pick that up with stuff like this, those teachers that had these two things filled this out correctly in under 5 minutes. The point we drove home is every single teacher is an EL teacher. You teach ELD through chemistry, you teach ELD through math, you teach ELD because 40% of our entire student body is ELs. And so, like I've said before, so go they, so we all go. And so the point that I really drew from those articles is how difficult it is to be successful as an EL if you're on an island, if you're by yourself, that it is our responsibility, whether you are a teacher, you're an office staff, you're an administrator, you're a school board member, like everybody is responsible for driving home this message that our ELs, even if their social acumen conversation is strong, like everybody needs to prioritize taking the time to set them up for success. Because if we do this when they are kindergartners, we do this when they're second graders, we do this when they're fourth graders, and the language is evolving, but so is their skill sets. Like if we do this, we will be pleasantly surprised very quickly about how they actually start picking up the language. But if we're not doing this and we're just saying, good luck, you're gonna learn covalent bonds on your own, what do we get status quo. And nobody in this room is satisfied with status quo. That's what I took.
Great little exercise.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
You know, have you ever played Loteria?
I've not.
It's a very, it's a very Hispanic game that has pictures on it, so you don't actually need to know how to read and write. That's why it's so popular
Mhm.
and so long ending. So like, we use pinto beans and it's just like bingo, but it's pictures. You know what I mean? And so that's why pictures and all this kind of stuff is so helpful, you know? And so I loved that.
Yeah.
Where you were like, oh, but, you know, putting all that together.
Yeah,
Super cool.
I mean, that's really, like, I am severely dyslexic, right? And no, it's weird. I've worked my whole life to get where I'm at, right? And I still remember going in the car with Alex and looking at picture books and still remember learning to restate the apple. I mean, it's,
right.
you know, just because spelling phonetically, it took me forever to learn how to do it. Absolutely forever. I still think about that all the
It's
time.
challenging.
It is
Yeah.
amazing that, as you said, so when you showed me the whale, because I was looking at this, I'm like, what the heck? But yet when you show the pictures, that I could go ahead and start
You
putting it
can-
together.
It actually doesn't take very long
Mhm.
when I give you a picture of a whale and
Yeah.
air and aquarium and like, I could probably give you 4 or 5 words and you could probably finish that thing almost on your own.
Right.
Once I give you just a little spark.
Or exactly,
Right.
exactly. As you were saying, as the picture with the word, and then you can like start discussing it. And it's,
Right.
yeah, I'm a completely visual and
That's another thing.
yeah, you know.
I mean,
So.
like our own dad never learned to read or write. He was severely dyslexic.
No.
you know, And so it's like, that's why we're so passionate about education, obviously.
Yeah.
So,
And that's,
yeah.
and I think that's part of the narrative that I'm ultimately responsible for trying to share with the K-12 teaching staff is, yeah, everybody's time poor. Like they're asked to do a lot and where every administrator is sensitive to that. And so when we say like, you know, in order for your ELs to be successful, like your teachers need to take a little bit of extra time and do things like this. Like that's not a trivial statement because even a little bit of extra time is extra time and they are busy. But the point is the gains that you are going to get in return have a sense of gratification for next week. And so it's one of those, we will see returns on this within a week, within a month, within a half a semester, within a full semester. And then by the time we look up within a year or 2 years or 3 years, now, instead of having 120 ELs at middle school and high school, we've got 75. And now instead of having 60 ELs at the high school that don't get a chance to have an elective because they have to be in an EL section, now we've got 15.
You
And
also
now-
have to imagine how the child feels,
Oh, how frustrating, right?
because
Yeah.
it's like knowing how it feels personally.
Yeah.
How hard is it to be somewhere and you're looking at them and you want to know so badly what they're talking about and you can't get it. And somebody just shows you like, oh, on my phone, like it's an apple.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, it's an apple. I can do this.
Why did they say that?
Yeah, like,
I looked at this and I was,
yeah,
but
so
then when you showed me the picture, I'm like, oh.
So yeah, so I think like, you know, not only from the teacher's perspective, but the kids don't want to be there when they don't get it. They feel like they're strangers. Yeah. They don't want to try when they're.
Did the
Outsiders,
teachers recognize
so
their
it's hard.
frustration?
Oh.
Like, were some of them frustrated?
Oh, it was, I mean, I made sure that I 100% made sure Tim Bowman got the sheet all by himself. All by himself,
I love it.
because I knew that I could read him like a book from the moment that my stopwatch started. I knew that I could just feel him looking at me like, what are you doing? But no, they at the end of the 5 minutes, like but it's funny because I spend 4 times a day going in and holding his grandson in the daycare. So yeah, he's good with it. So his grandson's like my therapy. So. Little Malin. But no, I mean, you could tell after 5 minutes, and then we rolled right into the conversation about how, like, if this is how you feel and you have a degree and you know what we're like, you're a learned person that cares about your discipline and you want these children to succeed, and you're frustrated year after year because you're trying and it's just not clicking. Like, we're not asking for the world here. We're not asking you to become, ELD experts. We're not asking everybody to be Raul Gomez. Like, we're just asking you to do one thing. Like, make one change, give them time to talk in class. Instead of spending time, 10 minutes, just going on and on and on about your subject, which is important, but go on for 8 minutes and then give them an extra 2 to just talk about it with each other. Get them talking, miles on the tongue. Like, little changes can actually snowball into big differences, but it's just, we've got to kind of break that rhythm of how have we taught for 5 years? How have we taught for 10 years? How have we taught for 15 years? Like,
Especially if you've been there a long time. That apathy is really like, it kicks in when you've been there a long time.
Yeah.
But the thing too is that teachers are so flipping busy and they're asked to do so many different things. And you guys have so many weird little regulations, and this and this and this, and it's like, it's hard for them to keep up.
And
You
sometimes
know?
it's also, you don't really get it, and then somebody says, hey, this is a good way to do it, and you just need
Yeah.
oh, I didn't think about that,
Yeah,
so you just
Somebody
need
looking
to
at different- looking at it different.
I could be doing 20 years the same way, but if just somebody doesn't tell me, show them a picture, I don't know,
Yeah,
I don't know that.
it's all communication, yeah.
Mhm.
but I want 5 teachers at the high school to buy into this and do this well. And those 5 teachers will see success. And then guess what they tell their peers?
Right.
Like, they can hear me talk all day long,
Yeah.
but I need 5 teachers at each school to say, you know what? I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to give it a try. And then in 5 teachers becomes 10, and 10 becomes 20. And then we look up and the majority of the district is doing this. And it doesn't take very long before the data reflects it.
That's funny, I literally told my son Alex, I was like, just, if you have your phone on you with a Ukrainian girl, I'm like, just Google it. Say it and then show it to her, she'll feel comfortable. It's like that little.
Which they won't have to do that anymore because we're actually buying some neat things for our newcomers.
That's awesome. No, but like
But-
talking, like lunch.
Yeah,
Like when they're
right,
walking in the hall.
right.
Yep.
And then she looks at them with a blank stare and it's like, oh.
Right.
You could just say, like, be kind,
Is
make
that,
her feel included.
and did you say, is that do they sign up for that, or is that something that he just did on his own?
No, they were just asked to.
So,
And so-
how do we get kids to do this?
to answer that question.
This better
Yeah,
planning
sure.
thing has that whole thing in there.
Yeah, because that's what, the student ambassadors.
Yeah, so I talked with Andrew Amon yesterday, and we started up a conversation. We've actually made headway really fast. We're about to propose it to Dandy, so here is my draft proposal. That we have worked on whether it's a 0.25 or a full 0.5 credit for, and the structure, the bones of it actually exists at the high schools. They've done it before, of students actually serving as peer tutors, peer advisors for other students. And so we're polishing it off and we're changing it to a little bit to where, and I emailed Sandra about this earlier today, that are for our classified staff that want to receive a little bit of an extra pay incentive to be interpreters and translators, they have to pass a test to show that they're competent in the language. And so we want to try to find a similar test that these high school students can do. And if they meet a certain threshold, they've got the right GPA and they can prove their bifluency and their biliteracy, that they can actually on their schedule, they can have a course that's a 0.25 or even a 0.5 credit for the year, where they actually come alongside some of our newcomer students or some of our 9th and 10th grader that are our lower ELs and actually serve as tutors during the day. So they can go into their class and sit with them, and they're earning credit and for doing this, almost like an independent study peer tutorage type of thing. But then it's almost, it's bolstering our ELD IA staff. And they could sit with them. And so math teacher teaches something for 10 minutes and then they go to the back of the room and then in back and forth with English and Spanish or English and whatever the language is. Did you understand what was being asked? Here's what the instructions are. Let's work on this together and those kinds of things. And so Andrew's kind of working on that right now with the counselor up at the high school and really trying to create a system soon for students to be able to sign up for this
That's awesome.
and really leverage.
I think that's a great idea because no matter what, teenagers will learn more from teenagers than they will ever from a teacher.
Yeah.
Because they learn the slang and they learn the life.
Yeah.
Get it?
That's one of the 8 different things we're gonna start with our newcomer
And then
students.
the other thing was, I read in there, do we have something set up for them when they come in that for school supplies, backpack, things that they may not have or didn't know they needed and things there? Is that something that we've done or do?
We have, and Mari Chris can support that quite well through the Welcome Center.
Okay.
It's, I think with the Ukrainian students that arrive to us, I think not in any sort of like negative sort of way, but it caught us off guard a little bit because I don't think we had ever really expected in such a short period of time to receive students and families that were coming from kind of the hardships. And that's not to say that other newcomers that have come that have been different hardships, it's not to say it's better or worse or harder or less, but I think that one caught us a little bit of, we didn't even quite know what questions to ask.
Sure.
And then obviously not being in what would be a familiar language out of the Welcome Center. We don't have anybody there that speaks Ukrainian. I don't think we connected as well as we probably could have, but we learned from it. Absolutely. And
And where did you get, WC or where do you get?
like the
those?
different supplies and
No, as far as the languages and things there, if you don't have somebody to interpret, how?
so I think we have 2 people on staff that speak. One person speaks Russian, one of our custodial staff. And then we actually have somebody in our daycare that speaks Ukrainian.
Oh.
She doesn't speak English very well, so it can get us part way. But she's fantastic, and so she's helped out where she can. One of the things that we have done that we are actually purchasing right now, there are these little devices called Pocket Talk, and they're about the size of what an old BlackBerry device would be. And we bought 15 or 20 of them. So every newcomer is going to get assigned one when they arrive to school and they pick it up in the office and they drop it back off on the end of the day. And essentially this device is supporting 75 different languages and it's connected wirelessly to our network. And they essentially can push a button, speak English, and then almost instantaneously with incredibly high fidelity of translation, will both audibly say it if you have the volume on, but then it will textually translate exactly what is said. But then beyond that, it's got a camera function. So if you have instructions that the teacher gives you, you can take a picture of it in English and it will translate it right in the language. So not only, right. And so we bought a couple of them. Every newcomer is going to get them. But then I selfishly got one for the Welcome Center so that if Mari Cruz isn't there or somebody like, you know, my Spanish is limited. So I'm able to then somebody comes in, rings the bell, we're able to do that. So that's one of the other new systems that we're putting in place for our newcomers right away. So this young lady that you were speaking of, hopefully one of the things that helps her not be as sad when she's here is to be able to connect with people, and you connect through language first and foremost. And so for her to then be able to share with people how she's feeling or what she's thinking about or those kinds of things, like they will be able to pick it up first thing in the morning and they drop it off on the way out. And it supports Ukrainian, it supports Russian, it supports Spanish, it supports several, it doesn't support MUM, but that's because MUM doesn't have a written language component to it. So there's no,
Really?
yeah,
No.
it doesn't. So it's a dialect of Spanish in Latin America. So but we get quite a few. And that's
I'll
the,
go in and I can't understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I feel about Ukraine. I'm like, I don't know.
It's like,
we have a kindergarten instructional assistant that's fluent in MUM. So if we need to leverage her,
see, that's great.
we have a kindergarten IA that's fluent and she's trilingual.
How cool is it that we have all of these people here in this tiny
Mhm.
little place?
Somebody
that
said
have all these
Vietnamese now
special
too?
skills.
We had a student that arrived to Suzanne's class pretty recently, and his family is Vietnamese. Mr. Bao. Yep. Awesome young man. So we actually used Linguava for his intake IEP meeting the other day. We scheduled Linguava, and they brought up a real-time Vietnamese English translator for the meeting.
It's all over.
Yeah. So we leveraged that because we obviously don't have anybody in district that's able to use it. So we just set up the appointment and we used our district ID for it, and Suzanne was able to use that and do his intake, and it works.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you guys.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine. Mhm.
So let's look at the ALPA 21. Let's see if I can.
That one student login.
Oh, right there.
Right there.
Okay,
Would you like me to drive, or do you want to?
I don't want to drive.
Okay.
I don't like to make decisions. I don't have to.
Yeah.
My husband gets really irritated. I'm like, I'm not making it.
So we talk about ELPA testing and not passing the ELPA and preparing for the ELPA in the spring and all those kind of things. And it's kind of a test that's hard to conceptualize. You can actually access test or false ELPAs, be able to see what it looks like. So we can select any grade, just go 5th grade right off the bat. We'll do an ELPA, start the test, and it just kind of different types of options that you could potentially have on it. You gotta make sure that there's a piece here where it actually makes you record. I don't know. I sound like Kermit. It's just like, it's so weird when you hear your voice, right? I just. Yeah. And then. Here's all that, good, okay. Begin test now. So this is what potentially a student. So then they would have to come down and between this and it doesn't let you know yes or no, right or wrong. You just select your answer.
Can I listen to the sentence again?
You can.
So I could do this.
So you go back and forth.
It's not a time test, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
And then I go to next. But I would say right off the bat, look at the chart. Where on there is a chart? I mean, like, honestly, like chart is a word that, I mean, if you were to look at this, I'm looking for a spreadsheet. I'm looking
Yeah.
for something. If that's the instructions I'm given and I'm an EL and they say, look at the chart, I'm already kind of like, I don't, where am I, what am I
I
doing
only
here?
see a picture.
Right, I see a picture and then and so then it's going to, I'm supposed to be able to have a word bank here. I wonder if it didn't give me all the way because this didn't finish. In the chart. So now this is my chart. And so, but again, thinking about like, it's a multi-step process that I hear the instructions and then I hear, which might be a little confusing. And then I hear the paragraph that's read out loud. But I mean, there's a lot of words that were being thrown at me. And then I've got to try to pick out, okay, what if I didn't know that this was the chart right off the bat, I'm not thinking, I've got to be thinking about food when they're talking about food. I'm just listening. I mean, I can go back and do it again, but it's like, and then here, meat, plants, fruit, fish, like what am I, right? And so, I mean, then obviously the idea is you would take your plant.
But I could see where kids would be like a deer in headlights, like.
What do I do? I don't, right?
Your chart. I can't.
And you didn't click it, you had to move.
You
it.
had to click and drag it down.
This reminds me of when Sophia was doing her Spanish,
It's like-
online Spanish, and this is the kind of stuff that she kept encountering.
And so I just click next. You must answer-
Navigating the system itself is a barrier.
That's stressful.
So when they take this test, is the teacher there or?
So they're there, but they're hands off.
They cannot answer.
They
questions?
cannot, you're not even supposed, you can't help. You can't do anything. They're
So they get-
very strict. It's like
Yeah.
Yes Back where you have a script you read at the start, and even in the script, it says, I can't help you. If you need to use the restroom, let me know, but otherwise,
So if they come across some type of a glitch like this, they can't.
and and so, right, and they're trouble navigating and then move on. So I mean, like, it just kind of goes on and it's, this has up here 2 out of 21 or 2 out of 22. So I mean, it's not, it takes a while. And then you can imagine if it's frustrating by the first or the second or the third question, what's your fatigue like by question 14?
No, they're like a deer in
15.
headlights.
So it is.
They're like,
And so, I mean, we can survey, we have surveyed the high school ELs that have been in for 5 or 6 or 7 years. And it's like, how hard do you try on this test? And you can guess exactly what their answer is. You don't try. We know we're not going to pass it. So I just click through, type things,
Wow.
and then we move on. Because they know, and so that's part of what Raul's presentation of creating, pushing resources down to the elementary school and creating a really strategic blitzkrieg approach to ELD at the elementary school, because we can, the idea is that we can get to them before they bought into this narrative that I can't pass this test.
Yeah.
yeah.
So we get to them when their language acquisition skills are the ripest and before they start telling themselves, I'm a forever EL, why even try?
Yeah.
Right? Because by the time they get to 8th grade we'll go to the 9th or the 10th graders and say, hey, if you just pass this test, you can get something, you get that off your schedule, and then you can take a CTE class, you can take welding, you can take woodwork, you take all these cool things. And it's like, I don't try. They even know the benefit and they don't try.
Do we give them test taking strategies? Like, do they do a practice test?
We will be this year. I can't, it's hard to speak for past years, but I know this year that's part of,
That's.
That's.
Because it's all about practice.
but you remember in previous presentations, or previous board meetings, one of the things that we are rolling out this year is Flashlight 360, which is a ELPA predictive program. It's the first time we've ever using it, which is intended to help them prepare for ELPA. And it was designed for click and drag and label. Write something out, hear somebody say something and then respond to it. So that even Flashlight 360, which they're doing about once every 3 weeks, looks like this.
Well, that's correct.
And so by the time they get to ELPA in March,
They're now comfortable.
this almost looks like Flashlight 360 to them. It's just the next 3-week thing that they're doing. They may not even really know, especially if we're talking K through 3, K through 4. They may not even know it's the ELPA versus Flashlight. They're so used to doing it.
And this is the same test every school takes. There's not one.
The test banks are there's thousands of questions. So it's one kid and one kid may not take the exact same
Oh, yeah,
test.
but
Yes.
they all come from the same place.
Yep.
Basically.
And and I'll tell you, the other incredibly frustrating thing about the ELPA is that the pass fail margin can actually be like a differential of like 20 points, but if you are under by like 5 points, you don't pass. But because there's a writing component and a speaking component that are subjectively graded, you can actually not pass the ELPA by 5 points, even though the pass fail margin is 10 points. Because that's the differential of like the subjective grade. So we have some kiddos that have been within that differential for a few years now. Just can't quite get over the hump on whatever their piece is. But that's what Flashlight 360 is intended to do, is to put a lens on those sub skills that they are struggling in and not focus on everything broadly with a carte blanche, but like you're missing this one skill. And if we can focus on this one skill, that's probably gonna pop you over.
Cause it talked about that in the articles that little girl got $4.99 and it was 500 and she,
It's,
what was that one little piece? And didn't allow her to get that certificate and things there. It's crazy. It's just,
Well, there's like I know this is a little bit off the subject, but I think for people that don't know what the language barrier is, there's a study that shows that kids that were born with cell phones and computers, it's like a first language. Like a 6-year-old can run you through your computer and your phone and tell you more than you know yourself.
oh.
So
It is true.
to me, when I have my cell phone, I know how to text and I know how to like look at YouTube. Like really like that's like my language with my cell phone. But if I give it to my 6-year-old, he'll like go. So
All of a sudden you'll
he
find
will
something.
always know more than me forever and forever, because that is not my first language for him. It is because he was born with it. So that's kind of like the same, right? Like there's just, I'll never learn as much as they're gonna know ever.
if you
So-
put your cell phone down in daycare center for more than 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
There is a 2-year-old over there that will find it.
I
And
know
they
the
don't know your
password.
passcode, but they will
They'll
do
get
this.
it. Yeah.
There's a 2-year-old that will just do this and you're like, "It's my phone." But I mean, it's so even they already know.
My 1-year-old granddaughter,
Right. And
she knows nothing.
and it's not hyperbole. There's more computing power on this phone than there was on the very first space shuttle that went to the moon in the 60s. I mean, that's not a joke. There really is more computing power on this.
But it's like a really good.
Gotta
way to,
tell
like,
ya.
explain, like, there's no way we'll ever know how much they know.
Yeah.
And that's how. An ESL can.
It's,
They'll never feel like they know as much, so.
But if we can get them early
Mhm.
and get them past that test, then.
Then
it
they'll
just
get
makes
it,
them-
yeah.
Stuff just makes a lot more, it makes it easier for them as they go through
Mhm.
school. So,
Yeah.
put them more inclusive, they won't feel like they're, outside of things and
Mhm.
stuff there, so. Oh, I love this.
I want that for them.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Have one more quick thing. I have the report cards and we're just gonna go over them just briefly. Because I have more in my report next week for the board meeting. And so I do have to publish these or post about them online. I'll do that next week before we go to Thanksgiving. And so basically in your board packet, which you're gonna get on Monday, is you'll have the district report card. And then you'll have each school's report card and an accountability summary sheet behind each school. So you can see exactly what areas that they were low in. And so if you look at this first page, it's the school district at a glance. In this report, it also includes data from Sam Brown and Frontier Charter. I did not include those specific schools or programs in what you have right now. But if you look at this, on the first page, you'll see that district-wide, there's 39% ELL kids, ever ELL kids. But remember, Frontier Charter is included in that. If you pull that school out, our number goes higher.
I was gonna say, 'cause
So if you go to this, it's like the second full page, it says Jervis Elementary School on it, not the back side of the district page, the second full page. Jervis Elementary, and this is last year's data. So again, K5, they have 56% ever English learners,
and they have 8 languages.
8 languages.
That was last year too, right?
This is last year.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the middle school, 60% ever English learners, 7 languages. And the high school is the same.
Where does that other language go? Do they leave? Do they leave?
The 8, I don't know which language that was. It's possible that they have moved. Yeah. Be more than likely. Or maybe they're a K4, so they haven't left the building yet, right? They're still, they haven't gone. They had gone sometime. So there's a lot of information in here. I mean, I think what you can take away from this overall is that Jervis continues to do really well in keeping class sizes down. We are still quite a bit lower on class size compared to the Oregon average. But, you know, there are some things that are concerning. What I'll highlight in next week's report is the idea that, we have these test scores from last year, so that's 20, 21, 22. And they're comparing us to the scores we got in 17, 18.
What? Even through COVID?
Excuse me, 18, 19. So we had been growing. And then COVID hits. And it, again, not surprising our test scores are in the toilet like everybody else's scores are. But they took these scores. And so when you see that, for instance, on the first page where it's the Jervis District at a glance, and you
Yeah.
see
English.
English language arts, third grade, oh, we're at 23%.
Or-
The rest of the state's at 40. Okay, even before COVID, we were not at the state average, but I think we were at 38%. So they take that number with the number that we had last year and they combine the two and now they give us our rating. And so they're using the measurement system, SBAC, for an educational system that did not exist for 2 years. And then trying to compare it to the educational system that did exist 3 years ago. So not an excuse.
Nope, but
We clearly don't want our kids to be this low, but I would say to you that when we get to this time next year, this is gonna look a lot different.
but we're also in third. Then you jump up to 8, our mathematics are right there.
Yeah,
Our graduation is, you know,
I
at
mean,
12th
yeah,
grade, we're
on
81,
12th,
we're
yeah,
right,
we're
we're right
at
where we're supposed to be, so.
Yeah.
No, I, for what we've gone through the last couple of years,
Mhm.
I think it's more than,
like if you go to the page that's the high school, so it's the last page of this
Mhm.
packet. And you look at on-time graduation, so we're 87% compared to the Oregon average. 5-year completion, way above, college going, below on that. What I talked to Andrew about, what I thought was interesting, if you go in the first row where it says on track to graduate. So those are your kids at the end of their 9th grade year. How many classes did they fail or how many credits did they earn? We're only at 74%, but the average is 83. But then you kick over to the on-time graduation and we're higher. So I said to Andrew, I want you to start looking at what is it about the 9th grade year? What's going on in 9th grade? Is it kids are having a hard time with transition? They don't know how to study. Is it something that we're doing? Like that's your equity, what you're looking at. Because something happens to freshman year. And then by the time they're sophomores and juniors, everybody's figured it out, whether it's staff or
I
kids.
have a 9th grader, I can tell you.
Tell us.
Freedom! Literally. I'm telling you. I'm like, what's going on? Well, I have like to go from that home to that home. They don't understand.
Oh.
Because we have like stuff to talk about. It's literally, it is, it's freedom, freedom. And then the parents find out and then they're like. You.
So it's the idea is that catching those freshmen earlier, like I've been saying to Andrew, let's not wait till first semester grades come out. If you know at week 6 that these 3 kids are failing, guess what? You now have an 8 period. You get out of 3:45, you're actually stayed till 4:30. And you're welcome.
Guess what? Guess who had detention today?
Yeah. You do that enough, you do that enough, and for those kids that are able to actually pull it together and don't need extra support, they will. And for those kids that do need the extra support and time, then they've received it.
Yeah, agreed.
So, it's just an interesting little tidbit about our district to figure out, so,
I like the class size because that'll attract some teachers.
yes,
It also attracts parents.
yes, it's true.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
So more to come on that next week, but I just didn't want you to be shocked if you saw it, posted on the website and then, people start talking about it on Facebook. I don't know if I'll really do that or not, but I just wanted to be prepared.
Be surprised.
I think we're like, now all of us are like,
It's-
yeah, I know, I'm like.
Angie, it's Asian.
It's Asia.
Asian.
Asian.
There's one Asian kid in
Ah,
element
negative, yep.
and
You're right.
So, the only other thing on your agenda is that the policy reviews, You're gonna have a lot of policies to approve next week. So if you have any questions, throw me an email. We'll get them answered that night so that we're, 'cause
That's
it's been a while.
That
since we-
sex ed one, I'm sorry, but
I can't go,
I
I can't.
Okay,
So
That's crazy.
you will be hearing from both of us on that. Where the minor.
first reading?
It's
It's the second reading.
there's a weird sentence in
That
there
says
about,
that.
they say it's about monogamy,
Right.
but it has
An
the
adult
word
and a minor,
adult
and
and
minor.
a child.
And-
And I
So
was
we
like,
actually emailed, because I know that the
Yeah.
last board meeting you had asked for me to email OSBA, so I did get a response from OSBA. So basically, I mean, we don't have any options. I don't know if you recall the email from Spencer. He said, well, you have this option or this option.
Yeah.
And I.
which are no options.
Right,
basically.
basically.
But we want it to be known that we did read that policy and we do
And that
not
we-
agree, and that's completely inappropriate. And I want it on record.
I wonder if there's a way where, because I think really what's happened there is it's a grammatical error. Like they didn't
They
create
went
the,
back though to them.
huh?
You went back to,
I-
I know you did.
I think Spencer gave us the answer that he thinks is,
Well, it's,
I'm
but
an
I-
editor.
yeah.
That was crazy.
no, the way it reads is that it's perfectly acceptable for an. I mean,
That was-
to me,
I just
that's,
don't even
to me, that's
understand how
grooming.
it got
The
in
way
there.
the way it reads, it's grooming.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, but
bizarre.
that to me is not acceptable.
So during the meeting, what you can do
Mhm.
is if after you guys all take a look at it, then you could entertain a motion to postpone the adoption of that particular policy. And then we can,
More clarification.
well, I can talk we're gonna see Spencer this weekend. We
Oh,
can
there
talk
you guys go.
about.
I'm gonna pull, I'm
bring it
gonna
up.
pull that
I was
policy.
gonna say,
100%.
take it with you.
Have it in your pocket.
Yeah.
Because there was one other thing too that I remember.
No, there was
being a
two,
big
but
one.
that one was.
But that
like,
one was the one that I was like,
it's
what?
just- No,
Angie, pull it out and look at it. I'm serious. Like, it was weird.
under the sex educational.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come home and look at it.
Yeah.
So much. Then I can.
It'll be in last month's packet,
Right,
Yeah.
and this month.
but they don't have this month's
Yeah.
packet yet.
So the policy
It's on it, it's on
IGAI,
IG,
IGAI.
IGAI.
But we gotta be
IG,
proactive as a board and
IG.
like,
AI.
AI.
What happens if we don't adopt it?
I think we had.
I don't,
Right?
don't we have to?
It's required.
It's required,
But what,
But
but
we
I
can- we
do,
can
but
put it on
yeah,
back.
what do you do?
You don't agree
If
with
we
it,
agree, like,
I-
how can we?
well, I think that we would then go, if OSBA continues to refuse to give us an option, then we engage our attorneys to speak with OSBA.
Because we
We're not gonna accept something that-
kick the can down the road a little
Yeah.
bit, to a certain extent.
Yeah, we don't have to adopt it next
Okay,
week, like, we're
right.
not gonna be, our
It's not a
birthdays are
timeline,
taken
right?
away.
We don't- Sandra, do we have a timeline that we have to have done by?
No.
Yeah,
In
just,
fact, you
yeah.
know, we had our administrative assistants conference today. And that's, you know, one of the things, you know, that they were talking about, like other districts, that they're so behind on their policies.
Oh,
And I'm
perfect.
just like,
Just
not
right
sure
up
if it's not, we're, yeah,
We're
but
okay.
Yeah,
I mean, some
okay.
take even, like, some are still working on their August ones that we received, and we're almost done adopting.
Well, you know, the menstrual act one, what have other boards done regarding that one?
They've adopted it. Yeah.
I mean, we have to. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I don't even know why they give us options because it's like, I mean.
I mean, our funding
So-
depends on it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that we have
It's
to-
true. So I will share that there are products in every building. I'm unsure if there are products in every bathroom.
That's fine.
There's nothing worse than for a little girl that had, and unexpectedly, that's for sure.
No, but that other one just, it just grates on me.
All right,
That one was great.
well, I think it's a perfect time. Timing is great, right?
Oh, yeah, no, well, we will definitely bring it up.
Yeah, exactly. It is good. All right, we're done. We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.